Hello Pokemon trainers, welcome back to another Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Battle Stadium singles video here on iStarly TV, part of my Road to Master series where I try to climb the online ranked Battle Stadium singles ladder. That's a really long intro. Anyways, so I already recorded this and I was playing through all the games and everything, and then it turned out, of course, that my microphone was not connected to my OBS, so it didn't record any of my audio. So this is a post-narration. Once again, I am commenting after the fact, but hopefully it works out just fine. This has happened before and it turned out fine. So anyways, this is a new team here, and of course this is the second video I'm doing with the new season, and this time I'm trying out Chien-Pao, which is the Ice and Dark type Ruin Legend, which I think is a really strong Pokemon, pretty scary. So let's kind of quickly go through the team here. We've got Chien-Pao with Swords Dance and Life Orb, as well as Sucker Punch, Ice Spinner, and Sacred Sword. I think those are probably the three best moves for it. We don't have any other Dark type stab, which I think could be a good option, but I did want to try Swords Dance, and we do have Terra Dark as well, just to boost the power of Sucker Punches, just do a lot of extra damage. From there, I'm actually using Breloom as well. Breloom I thought would be a really good Pokemon in this meta because the 4 new Pokemon that were added to the meta are all Dark types, right? And I think Breloom's just a good Pokemon in general. It's always been really good. It's just one of those Pokemon where it has a lot of counters in this meta, notably things like Garganacl and Gholdengo, which are immune to Spore. And one of the big reasons Breloom is so good is because it has access to Spore, and then it can also hit really hard. But anyways, wanted to try out Breloom, and then I made it Terra Fighting, just similar to Chien-Pao, just to boost the power of the Mach Punch once we Terrastalize. From there, we just wanted to kind of balance things out. So the middle 2 Pokemon there are actually the same exact sets for Gholdengo and Dragonite that I used in my previous video where I showed off Chi-Yu. So we've got, Timid, Max Special Attack, Max Speed Gholdengo with a Covert Cloak, Nasty Plot, and Recover. And then we have very bulky Dragonite with almost max HP, and then max defense, and then Impish Nature. So very, very bulky there. Finally, to round out the team, 2 Pokemon that I thought would complement the weaknesses and the typings of all my Pokemon were Iron Moth and Garganacl. So Iron Moth, this is the set that I used. I used it in one of my older previous videos from the previous season, and it's very bulky. So basically we have just enough speed investment so that speed is my highest stat, so that I get the booster energy boost in speed, and then we've got max HP and the rest of it in special defense. So very bulky Iron Moth, and of course we're using Fiery Dance to hopefully boost our special attack, which is an already high special attack stat. So even though we're not running special attack investment, we should still be able to hit decently hard. And then finally we've got Garganacl. I was just looking for a Pokemon that could kind of cover the weaknesses of something like Chien-Pao. My team is very weak to Fairy, although we do have Iron Moth. I know Garganacl doesn't resist Fairy, but most strong Fairy types Garganacl can actually, handle. It's really, really bulky, so it's not really afraid of stuff like that. Plus, opposing Brelooms sounded scary, so that's why I went Terra Flying on Garganacl, because then at that point Breloom pretty much can't touch you. Which is really good. So that is the team, and of course we have the team code right there in case you want to try it out for yourself. If you do, definitely let me know in the comments how it goes for you, and if you have any ideas for improvements, also let me know, because this is a fun team and hopefully we can improve it. But anyways, let's get to some games. So game number 1 here, the first thing that I notice, of course, is that my opponent has a mono Fairy team, which is pretty funny. So, it's funny because I have Pokemon that are definitely weak to Fairy, so seeing a mono Fairy team is really unfortunate, but then I also have a couple Pokemon that kind of can shrug off Fairy type moves really easily, notably Iron Moth and Gholdengo. So I definitely was looking to bring those 2 Pokemon. I will say right now, because I kind of take a long time, I don't remember what I'm talking about here, but I do definitely bring Iron Moth. And I'm trying to think of who else I bring here. So basically, when I looked at their team, they have a couple Pokemon that are pretty scary. Doxbun you don't see very often, but it is really bulky and it can be pretty annoying. But then we have Tinkaton and Hatterene, which I suspected would be the possible leads from them. So I thought that they would either lead with Hatterene or Tinkaton. And to be honest, with the Pokemon that I ended up bringing, I kind of prepared for a Hatterene lead. And you'll see pretty soon. I guess I'll just kind of wait until until it actually happens. But you'll see right now, you know, that was the kind of prediction of whether they were going to lead with Hatterene or Tinkaton. I ended up leading with Dragonite, assuming that it would have a little bit of a better matchup against Hatterene. Of course, Dragonite is weak to Fairy, so it's weak to their entire team, but I could possibly Terra Normal if I wanted to. I also thought that Dragonite looked like it would be pretty strong because it can hit decently hard, and something like Gardevoir, it has really frail defense, so Dragonite would be like great against Gardevoir and decent against Hatterene. Of course, my opponent does end up leading with Tinkaton, the other possible lead that they could have had, and had I led with something else, I would have been in a lot better position. But I thought about going for Dragon Dance here, I just didn't think it was worth it. Now, Tinkaton typically goes like Stealth Rock, Thunder Wave, Knock Off, and a fourth move. In this case, you know, spoiler alert, it has Gigaton Hammer, but it does have all of those other moves as well. So I just thought that going into Gholdengo here was better than my Dragonite kind of having its multi-scale broken, or than having my Dragonite Thunder Waved. And it actually has Fake Out, so I forgot about that, but yeah, it has Fake Out, so it's great that I ended up switching here into Gholdengo. And Gholdengo seemed like a great option. Now, I was absolutely aware that Tinkaton probably does have Knockoff, which is commonly the case with it. So I didn't know how much it would do. Of course, Tinkaton's attack stat is not amazing, but it does knock off my Covert Cloak, and of course it does do a lot of damage to me. So I was like, okay, this is a little scary. I was trying to calc it here though, and knowing that knockoff does double damage if you're holding an item, then, you know, I kind of figured that the second knockoff would not kill me because my item is already knocked off, so I don't have an item anymore, so it'll do less damage. So I knew I would survive, and I just ended up going for Recover here. Could have gone for the Shadow Ball, but knowing that this Tinkaton is faster, if I go for Shadow Ball, basically my Gholdengo is guaranteed dead. So they ended up using this turn to go for Stealth Rock, which is definitely annoying, but at the same time, of course, my Dragonite has heavy duty boots, so I don't really need to worry about that in that regard. But I do also have Iron Moth, who is weak to rocks, so I was worried about that. But either way, get off the Recover. It doesn't take me back to full, obviously, and here I was making the decision. I kind of suspected that Make It Rain would actually possibly knock them out, because Shadow Ball did almost half, and of course Make It Rain is a lot more powerful than Shadow Ball. I was just kind of looking at their team though and thinking, like, if I go Make It Rain, I possibly knock them out, but of course I lower my special attack, and then it gives them pretty much a free switch into something else. I did also consider going for the Terra Flying, because it would actually, I think that is what I do here. I Terrasilize into a flying type, removing the dark type weakness, so that knockoff does less damage to me. And again, I knew that Tinkaton could have Gigaton Hammer. Typically with these Tinkaton sets, they actually do not run it, but as you'll learn, again, spoiler alert, this Tinkaton actually does have Gigaton Hammer. So I'm gonna go for the second Shadow Ball, and it's gonna do just about as much as the same, or just about the same amount as the previous one. And this is gonna allow them to go Gigaton Hammer and take me down very, very low, which means that, you know, I'm in a really rough position here. So this ends up being a little bit of a rough situation, because I'm going for Recover now, and I know that, you know, the gimmick with Gigaton Hammer is that they cannot go for it 2 turns in a row. So I know that this next turn they are going to go for Knockoff again, because again, they cannot go for Gigaton Hammer. So I just go for Recover here just to get myself closer to full health. I kind of, looking back on it, I feel like this is a little bit of wasting time. I probably should have just fired off the Make It Rain as early as I possibly could have. And here I go for Recover, knowing they're going to Gigaton Hammer, so I just want to get back as much health as possible. But this ends up being a lost cause. Like, this is just a waste of time, if I'm being honest, because no matter what happens, basically, once I knock them out, I am going to be really low on health, and there's just kind of nothing I can do to avoid that at this point. So I just kind of like end up deciding to just go Shadow Ball here, because if I Recover, I would get to full health, but then they would just Gigaton Hammer the next turn and take me down really low, and then I'm out of Recovers because I forgot to use PP up on it. So whatever. I mean, I know that was a little bit of a stally part on my part, and honestly, I didn't play that super well because of the fact that I was kind of wasting moves, like wasting time. I should have just gone for the Make It Rain when I could have, but anyways, I end up finally knocking out this Tinkaton. Tinkaton also has really good special defense, so that's another reason why it was able to take hits from my Gholdengo really well. And now I just kind of know my Gholdengo's as good as dead. Good as gold, good as dead, right? Because whatever they go into is going to just be able to knock out my Gholdengo for free. Luckily, I mean, if it's some saving grace, of course, I didn't go Make It Rain, which means my attacks will be hitting pretty hard, but they do go into Gardevoir, and I figured it's going to be a Choice Scarf variant because otherwise, Gholdengo naturally outspeeds Gardevoir. So, you know, obviously, I did think, oh, it's possible they could also Terrastalize here, but I figured they were going to be Choice Scarf because of the fact that I don't know why you would go into Gardevoir otherwise against a Gholdengo, because once again, I mean, maybe they could have suspected that I'm not max speed, but anyways, spoiler alert, they do end up being Choice Scarf. I think here, well, my opponent was taking a long time thinking, and I was like, oh, maybe they aren't Choice Scarf. Maybe they're kind of like thinking of what their play is, but yeah, they are going to be Choice Scarf. I went for Shadow Ball there. I guess it's another situation where you look back on it in retrospect, and I probably should have gone for Make It Rain, but I was expecting them to Terrastalize here, and I was honestly expecting them to Terrastalize into something that could resist Steel. The funny thing is, and that's why I did not go for Make It Rain, the funny thing is they do Terra Rock, which is really baffling to me. I have no idea why you would go Terra Rock on Gardevoir. It's kind of one of those situations where it's like the universe, like, you're in a position where it's like, oh, you know, there's no possible way I could lose this battle, and then the universe is like, well, guess what? This Pokemon has the perfect counter for your Pokemon, right? Like, for some reason, they're Terra Rock, which lets them hit me for super effective damage. I think I would have lost that exchange anyway, because obviously, again, they are Choice Scarf here. But I just thought it was really weird that they're Terra Rock. I have no idea why you would run Terra Rock on Gardevoir. And if you have an idea of why, let me know. I feel like that's been happening a lot in these videos. I think in the last video, I forgot which Pokemon it was, but oh, it was like Ting Lu with Terra Bug, and I was wondering why they would go Terra Bug. But anyways, yeah, if you have an idea of why possibly you would go Terra Rock on Gardevoir, let me know. Here I was thinking about what to do. So I know that they're Scarfed, and I know that they're locked into Terra Blast, Terra Rock. And obviously both of my last two Pokemon are weak to Rock because I already wasted my Terra, so I can't save that, right? Or hopefully you get what I'm saying. I know this sounds really weird. Here I just go for the Earthquake though, knowing that it'll do a lot of damage. And of course I know that they're going to be faster, and I also know that if I Dragon Dance, they are still going to be faster than me. So I did not want to Dragon Dance there, because if I did, basically they would be faster than me 2 turns in a row, which means they would knock me out with 2 Terra Blasts. So yeah, I just went for the Earthquake there because it was my best bet, and I was hoping it would do as much damage as possible because of the fact that while it is super effective against them, my Dragonite has almost no attack investment. It's an impish nature, and it only has 12 attack EVs, which is really not that much. So they end up switching out, actually. They go into, I think it's going to be Azumarill here, which on one hand is... Oh, no, I'm sorry, duh, it's Doxbun. I was talking about that. Yeah, so... Or I was thinking about that earlier. But anyways, yeah, Doxbun, of course, is really bulky on the physical end. I go for the Earthquake there, they go into Doxbun, and then I know that I have to switch out here because basically I figured, like, if they attack me with any move and break my multi-skill, I basically lose against the Gardevoir. If Dragonite's multi-skill is broken against Gardevoir, I automatically lose because they're going to be faster and they're going to hit me with a super effective Terra Rock. So I go into my Iron Moth here, hoping amongst all hope that they don't go for Roar, because if they had gone for Roar, that would probably be an absolute worst case scenario. Luckily for me though, they go for the best case scenario, which is going for Charm, which obviously does nothing against Iron Moth, and this is going to allow me to threaten them with a Sludge Wave. Now, in retrospect here, I probably should have thought about the possibility that they switch into Gardevoir, but I just figured, like, even if they do switch into Gardevoir, like, they're gonna take a lot of damage, and that's gonna put me on the upper hand, I guess you could say. Also, I am again max speed timid with the booster energy boost, so I should be faster than their Choice Scarf Gardevoir. So I kind of felt like I was in a really great position here. Now, the really funny thing is, something I was talking about throughout this whole video is the fact that my Iron Moth has Fiery Dance, Sludge Wave, Dazzling Gleam, and Discharge. Discharge is there just to hit like other fire types, notably other Iron Moths, because if I have Energy Ball in that slot, then I cannot touch opposing Iron Moths. This is a situation though where if I had Energy Ball, this battle would have been so much easier, but of course I don't have it, so yeah, it's funny when you choose Iron Moth. Again, it's that question of, do you want to be able to hit this Pokemon and not be able to hit these Pokemon, or vice versa, right? So you have to make that decision. here I was deciding on what to do. Now Sludge Wave, I kind of forgot Sludge Wave is Poison is resisted by Rock. So that obviously didn't do that much damage at all. And I was thinking here, okay, if I stay in and go for a move, I'm probably not going to knock them out. But if I switch, you know, obviously that's really bad for me as well. So I end up just going for the Discharge just to kind of see how much it's going to do. You know, I kind of thought to myself, like, I need Dragonite to... Like, Dragonite helps me take down this Gardevoir, but Iron Moth is kind of necessary to take down their Darkspun. But at the same time, like I said, if I felt like if I went into Dragonite and they break my Multiscale, I pretty much lose, because then Gardevoir gets to knock me out with the following Terra Blast, and then at that point, if I have Iron Moth in the back, my booster energy's gone, so they're going to be faster than me. So I just kind of felt like no matter what I do here, I'm on the back foot and I'm probably losing this game. So anyway, I do go back into Dragonite now after losing my my Iron Moth, and of course they do trace the Multiscale, which is scary, but since they're not at full health anymore, it actually doesn't end up mattering. And I was just kind of looking, I don't remember what I was looking at here. I think I do end up, oh yeah. So I was thinking to myself, if I go Earthquake here, they're going to break my Multiscale, right? And then I will knock them out, but they will break my Multiscale, and then they go into Darkspun, and they basically get to go for Charm for free, which is really annoying. So what I ended up doing was going for Dragonite, knowing that I could survive one Terra Blast, and just hoping, just crossing my fingers that a +1 Extreme Speed can knock them out. I mean, they are Gardevoir, which means they have really low defense, but they are a Rock type, so that's another important thing. And, you know, it's not stab Extreme Speed. So basically I kind of felt like I was losing anyway. So I just kind of thought that this kind of desperate play was my best bet. So I go for Extreme Speed here. Well, I guess I was thinking, I was like, oh, is there any chance I live? But I figured there wouldn't be. I end up clicking Extreme Speed to see if Gardevoir gets knocked out by that. Again, here I was just kind of really thinking about what to do. And I did decide on Extreme Speed, and it does knock it out. I guess I should have expected that, right? I mean, Gardevoir is really frail, like I was saying, even though it resists it. But we are at +1 now. And of course, the one thing I'm worried about with Darkspun is it going for Charm, which will lower my attack. And I felt like at that point, it felt like we were in a little bit of a stalemate, because I could roost off the damage from it. But then, like, I don't know what attacking moves it usually has, maybe Body Press. But, you know, I just thought I go for Earthquake here just to get off as much damage as possible, figuring that if they do have a Fairy type move, like, I'm probably losing anyway, so I might as well try to knock it out here. Very sadly, though, I don't do enough damage. I actually don't do a lot of damage at all, and they go for the Charm, which is going to set me back significantly. But I thought maybe I could just spam Earthquake and just kind of just keep doing that over and over, and maybe eventually get a crit. And if they don't have any recovery, then I could be in a good spot. But they actually just go for Body Press. And the funny thing that's about to happen right here is that they just scoop, they just concede there. I guess they didn't really have anything to hit me, and they probably didn't have any recovery, which means, again, as I said, eventually I would be knocking them out. It would just take, you know, 20 turns. But I wonder what other moves they had. Like, I wonder if they did have Roar, maybe, because that's a reason why they would just, you know, just quit there, because, you know, they don't have anything to hit me with. I just don't know what other moves they could have possibly had that would cause them to just end the battle right there, because I felt like I was in a really bad position. But either way, that ends up working out really well for me. That's a win for game 1 thanks to Dragonite. Let's get to game 2 right away, right here. So game 2, my opponent has a really interesting team. They have Ursaring and Lockix, which are 2 Pokemon you do not typically see, so it's really cool to see them. Skeledirge is also a Pokemon that was really good in the earlier seasons, but since the Paradox Pokemon, you know, notably stuff like Fluttermane and Iron Bundle rose up, Skeledirge has not seen quite as much play. And to add salt to the wound, I guess you could say, again, the 4 new Pokemon that are added are all Dark types. So, you know, Skeledirge is not enjoying his time in Battle Stadium singles right now. So anyways, we see a Skeledirge, we see Rotom, you know, we see, of course, Great Tusk and Fluttermane. So those are all scary Pokemon for sure. So looking at their team, I did suspect that Chien-Pao would be in a really good position. It's pretty good against most of their team 1v1, and it's probably worst case scenario is against Skeledirge, because my only Dark type move is Sucker Punch. So, you know, and they could have like Will-O-Wisps, so that could end up being really bad for me. But either way, I kind of thought Chien-Pao would be a great Pokemon to bring here. I just didn't want to lead with it. I don't remember who I lead with. I also thought Breloom would be in a good spot here. Now, they do have Skeleturge and they do have Fluttermane, both of which are Pokemon that kind of are annoying for Breloom, although at the same time, Breloom does have ways to beat them. So I did decide to lead with Breloom. And here I was deciding between which of my special attackers to bring. I ended up settling on Iron Moth. I was running out of time, so that's honestly a big reason why I did that. With Gholdengo, honestly, the reason I didn't bring Gholdengo, Gholdengo looked good here, but I was afraid of that Fluttermane, and I felt like Iron Moth is way better against Fluttermane than Gholdengo is, so that's why I ended up kind of making that last second switch. But again, I do lead with Breloom here. And I figured it has a good matchup against everything. And I kind of suspected they would lead with this Lockix. I also thought they could also possibly lead with Fluttermane. And since I have Focus Sash, I can take any hit and put their Fluttermane to sleep. So here, I was just looking at my team and I deduced that I don't really have a good switch. And I figured because they led with Lockix, they are probably going to go for First Impression, which can do a lot of damage. It's kind of like a bug type fake out, which... you know, they can only use it on the first turn of battle. I thought about terastallizing here because if they do go for First Impression, which I think was really likely, it would end up making me resist it rather than taking neutral damage because, you know, I'm a grass and fighting type right now. But anyways, I decided not to waste my Terra on turn 1, and my opponent has other plans. They are going to waste their Terra on turn 1. But of course, that means that they are going to get off a lot of damage. You know, if I'm being quite honest, I don't know if they needed to terastallize here. I mean, if my opponent is aware of the meta, you know that Breloom typically runs Focus Sash. Like, that's probably the most common item on Breloom. So I kind of wonder if they don't waste their Terra there. They just go First Impression. They probably take me down to my Sash anyway, even without the Terra. And then they can probably knock me out after that. But anyways, I get the Spore off on them, which is great. Because they are Terra Bug now, the funny thing is they actually resist all of my moves, so I actually have to switch out there. But luckily, because they are asleep, I kind of felt like that was fine. Like, I felt like that was a little justified. I go into Chien-Pao here, and I think I get a little greedy here, and I think I go for the Swords Dance, or do I just go Ice Spinner? No, I do. Okay, I just go Ice Spinner to get off a lot of damage. I thought there was a chance I would knock them out, but unfortunately for me, I'd take them down to 1 HP, and doubly unfortunately for me, they actually get the early wake up. I think that's the earliest possible wake up they could have had. I could be wrong on that though, but either way, that's unfortunate because that means that they are going to easily knock me out with U-turn. Any move they had gone for there would have knocked me out, but I guess the very small silver lining here is that they have Life Orb, and because of that, they are going to be knocked out as well. So it ends up being a trade there, but I am down right now. I am behind because of the fact that my Breloom is at 1 HP, and then I have a full HP Iron Moth, while my opponent has 2 full HP Pokemon remaining. So I definitely felt like I was on the back foot here, which is a little unfortunate. And then they're going to go right into this Rotom, the Scholar. I was really intrigued by that mark or that ribbon. I don't know if I've heard of a ribbon that says the Scholar. So I was like, oh, I want to get a Pokemon with that ribbon. But anyways, because I care about that stuff, and I don't think too many other people do. Here I was thinking to myself, okay, if I'm faster, if they're not max speed, I should be faster. And guess what? They're not max speed. So that ends up being perfect for me because I'm able to just straight up knock them out with a Bullet Seed, that ends up making up for the fact that my opponent's Lockix got the early wake up. Now, I did get a crit in the last hit. It possibly mattered, but I don't think it mattered. I think it's more likely it did not matter than that it did. But either way, I'm in a great spot here thanks to Breloom. And I knocked that Rotom out very easily. Finally, my opponent goes into Skeleturge, and I was like, actually, I think I'm winning this game with Breloom alone. Breloom was the all-star in this game, the MVP, I mean. Because I know that I'm going to be faster than a Skeleturge, I'm able to put them to sleep with Spore. I know that they already used their Terra, so I can just freely spam Bulldoze and hit them for super effective damage. And basically, if they ever wake up and knock me out, then I can just go into Iron Moth and finish the game because Skeleturge will probably be at low HP by that point. And if they wake up and go for Slack Off, that's also bad for them because I can just put them to sleep again. So, you know, that's what ends up happening here. They end up waking up right away, and then they do go Slack Off. But like I said, I'm like, Okay, that actually doesn't matter because I just go for Spore again and then spam Bulldoze until they're knocked out or until they wake up again, and then again they're in that conundrum where they either knock me out and then I go into Moth and knock them out, or they slack off and I put them to sleep again, and it's just like that never-ending cycle. So as you would guess, you know, I am gonna be winning this game, and again, Breloom was the MVP here. Chien-Pao did some work. I mean, you know, Breloom wouldn't have been able to take down Lockix by itself, so Chien-Pao did help a lot there, but, you know, I like that this is my first video ever using Breloom in Battle Stadium Singles. I think it is, right? I hope that's true. But either way, I haven't really used Breloom at all in Battle Stadium Singles and in Scarlet and Violet, and it's still just a really good Pokemon. So we defeat Boss. Sorry about that, Boss. And that was a good game. Let's go to game 3. The last game here, I look at my opponent's team, and they've got a lot of really strong Pokemon. They have Pokemon where I have Pokemon that can like easily take them on, but then they have like counters to those. And importantly, like they have a lot of really good typings. I would say that my opponent's team looks really well built because they have a lot of Pokemon that have just, again, really great typings. Notably, at the very bottom there, they have that Slitherwing, which is a bug and fighting type. And that's a rough one, right? Because, I mean, we do have fire moves for it, and that's about it with Iron Moth. So if they bring that thing, I was a little worried about that. So I was kind of trying to assess what to bring here. On the one hand, Breloom is really good against some of these Pokemon and also really bad against others. So I was trying to think what to do there. I ended up deciding to bring my Breloom, and then of course I do also bring Chien-Pao. Chien-Pao also looked really good here, though once again they have Breloom of their own, and they also have Garganacl, who's extremely bulky. So that was something that I needed to keep in mind. They also have Fluttermane, which is obviously very fast, but the interesting thing is Fluttermane and Chien-Pao actually had the same exact speed stat, so we actually would speed tie if we ever went up against each other, so that's kind of an interesting spot to be in. I think I do end up deciding on also bringing Iron Moth. Just like in the last video, I brought the same 3 Pokemon. And again, that was just because Iron Moth seemed like it matched up against the Pokemon that Chien-Pao and Breloom had trouble against, so let's see how this battle turns out. Again, my opponent's team is kind of scary. They also have that Kingambit, which is also really scary. Kingambit is just a fantastic Pokemon. So they end up also leading... Oh, sorry, I thought they led with their Breloom. Never mind. They end up leading with Fluttermane, and I thought this is an okay matchup. Obviously, Fluttermane is way faster than Breloom, so they are going to be faster than me. But they are probably aware that I have Focus Sash and that I have Spore. I just decided to go for Bullet Seed here, though, because I figured, you know, obviously they can't knock me out with a single move, and Bullet Seed can possibly knock them out. So they make a very smart play there and switch out, which is great for me because it ends up effectively wasting their booster energy, and they go right into their own Breloom, which is not a great spot for me to be in. And actually, here's where I make a kind of a very critical play. I end up wanting to just do as much damage to their Breloom as possible and hopefully knock it out. So I end up terastallizing right away. I think I look at their team or something, or I was debating it, and I look at their team just to see, like, if I Terra right now, is that really bad that I'm not going to Terra something else later? And looking at their team, Terra fighting it's like a 50-50. It's like, it's great against certain Pokemon and also not great against others, but I just felt like getting the knockout on Breloom as early as possible was going to be my best case scenario. Of course, given that we're both grass types, both of us are immune to Spore, so we cannot... Well, here's the funny thing is now I'm not a grass type, so now they could Spore me, right? But I was just hoping that I would knock them out with a Terra-boosted Mach Punch, and I figured if I did, then that would be a great position for me because my Breloom would still be alive and theirs wouldn't. Unfortunately for me, I just miss out on the KO, so that's actually really huge. You know, if I had gotten a little bit more damage on that Mach Punch, or if I had gotten 3 hits on the Bullet Seed, I would have knocked out their Breloom, and my Breloom's Focus Sash would have still been intact. So that's a really marginal, like statistically, that's a really, you know, kind of small chance for this to happen, but unfortunately, it just does not work out in my favor. And if it had worked out in my favor, I would have been in such an amazing position, but unfortunately it doesn't, so I have to switch out there because my Focus Sash is broken and Breloom cannot live a hit from Flutter Mane. I go into Iron Moth, which, you know, I also felt okay about this because Iron Moth is a pretty great matchup against Flutter Mane. So here, I forgot, I just go for Fiery Dance, assuming they're probably going to switch, but even if they don't, you know, I have the chance to boost my own special attack. Also, something I was happy about is that they did not get the special attack drop from Moonblast, so that put me in a good spot. And they go into their Breloom, which, you know, is great for me. You know, obviously they were going into it to sacrifice it because they figured it was probably dead weight at this point. And I do luckily get the special attack boost, which is great against their Flutter Mane. But, of course, at this point, I don't know who their last Pokemon is yet. So, you know, if they go into Flutter Mane here, I'm in a great spot. If they go into something else, I'm probably not in a great spot. So they go into Kingambit. And very scarily, it does have the Supreme Overlord, and I was just afraid of a Terra Dark boosted Sucker Punch. So even though I have super effective damage against them, I figured it was very likely they were going to Terrastalize here, and I thought that if I stayed in, especially if they go for Sucker Punch, I was just probably in a bad spot. Now, I probably should calc it though and see if I actually live, because if Iron Moth lives there, that actually puts me in an amazing position. But unfortunately for me, you know, I just thought that I was just playing really scared, to be honest. And as you'll see right now, they do Terra Dark, and as you'll see right now, that ends up really hurting me because my opponent actually makes a really great prediction and goes for the Kowtow Cleave. And that is just going to do too much damage to my Chien-Pao. So my opponent made a really great play there, really great prediction. Here, I think I go for the Sacred Sword. You know, it's always a prediction game when you're playing Kingambit and when you're playing against it. I do predict them to go for Cleave again, you know, not going for Sucker Punch. Although looking back on it, I don't know why they didn't just go for Sucker Punch. But either way, that works out really well for me because I am able to get off some damage on the Kingambit before my Chien-Pao goes down. So Chien-Pao's an awesome Pokemon. Unfortunately, this game, you know, this video, it doesn't do that much, but I think it still has a lot of potential, and I'll probably play it in other teams later. But anyways, here I go back into Breloom, and here I make a very good prediction that they're going to go into Flutter Mane. And I'm like, okay, if I go Mach Punch, I know I'm going to be faster, and I know I'm going to knock them out. If they go Sucker Punch, I am in a really bad spot, though. So let's see what happens here, right? If they go into Flutter Mane, then I am golden because I just get to destroy them. And my opponent has completely outplayed me this battle. They went for Sucker Punch. I guess that was probably obvious. I mean, the reason I went for Mach Punch is because I was expecting them to go into Flutter Mane, right? Like, if it's only going to be Kingambit versus Breloom, obviously they're going to go Sucker Punch because I'm not going to Spore them, right? I guess I could. I don't know. Either way, that was a really rough situation. You know what? Actually, on second thought then, maybe Spore was the better move. Yeah, okay. Well, now here I was just kind of thinking like, okay, how do I possibly win this battle? And obviously, you know, there's not a good way for me to possibly win this battle, because even if I am able to knock out their Kingambit with my Iron Moth, then they go into Flutter Mane, and Flutter Mane is going to be faster than me because my booster energy is gone. But anyways, yeah, so let's kind of talk about that play there. Looking back on it, honestly, I didn't realize at the time that Spore was actually my best bet because, yeah, that was really dumb of me. I didn't realize it at the time. If they go for Sucker Punch with Kingambit, it doesn't do anything, and Spore puts them to sleep. And then I just knock them out from there. If they go for Kowtow Cleave with Kingambit, well, I'm naturally faster than them, so I can put them to sleep with Spore anyway. If they switch into Flutter Mane, then I put that to sleep. So yeah, that was actually, I actually had an out to win that battle, and at the time I just did not realize it. If I had just clicked Spore, you know, I was kind of trying to think fast and trying to outplay them in some ways, but honestly, Spore was just the single move that wins me that game. So big mistake on my part, but either way, I do think my opponent still played pretty well. And of course, they do end up winning, so that's pretty good for them. But yeah, let's look at the team here. Now, if you have any suggestions for ways to make this team better, let me know, or just in general, Pokemon that you think pair really well with Chien-Pao, because I like the Pokemon a lot. I think it's really strong. I'm honestly not sure this is the right set for it, though. I think you might want to run Focus Sash on it and either not run Swords Dance or not run Life Orb, basically. I think that either of those should go because Chien-Pao unfortunately didn't do a lot of work in this video, even though I think it has a lot of potential. Breloom was great though. Breloom was fantastic, and again, I haven't really used it in either or in any of the previous seasons. Iron Moth is as good as ever, Dragonite's as good as ever, Gholdengo's as good as ever, you know, these are great Pokemon. So yeah, let me know what you thought in the comments. Thank you very much for watching, I appreciate it. I hope you have a great day, and please like and subscribe for more Pokemon Battle Stadium Singles videos. I'll see you next time.